Take a beautiful breath in on this weekend that is established to celebrate those who have served in the armed forces and combat zones who lost their lives in that process. And I posted, there's a page that Stacy Ruth created for us on Facebook where you can go in and generate dialogue among members. And so I posted a thing about Memorial Day, and I said, for those of you who perhaps have a relative or a friend or a loved one who did lose their lives, would you be willing to share it here and express who they were and where they served, and let us honor them? And so one woman shared that her uncle lost his life from the kamikaze pilots over Iwo Jima. She never fully met her uncle, but the stories about him and his legacy had filled a lot of narratives in her family discussion. And then I want to give you an example of reconciliation. Someone else posted that their relative had been a kamikaze pilot, and he was unable to fulfill his mission because they ran out of planes, and that she wanted to extend a generational forgiveness for that. And I thought, how amazing it is that as time goes on, if we're all willing, there's something beautiful that can evolve from ignorance and from divisive narratives. And she also added that the relative that was the kamikaze pilot was only enrolled in that because at the time they were forced to do such things. Not that they wanted to do that, but that they were forced to do that. And what does that then play into our individual and our community opportunity for evolution? And what is our job? What is our gift? What is the thing that is before us to do, rather than to not be a part of that evolutionary visionary pull, but to hold back or to give way to that and to surrender? And part of that surrendering is in self-awareness. Part of that surrendering to the expansion of evolution that happens not only within this community, but happens in the own secrecy and the privacy of our personal work. How does that affect the world? And why are we here, and what part are we playing in that? There's a lot there. And far too often what happens is we approach all of this intellectually and we nod our head and we feel good for a little bit, but then we go back into the density of unconsciousness. And the responsibility and the mission and the vision, as you've heard this morning and you hear every week here, is about reawakening the planet, reawakening the individual to their spiritual magnificence. Why? Why? Why do we bother to do that? Because we know that as we do that, we set the stage for future generations to experience reconciliation. We set the stage for future generations to not make the same mistakes as those in the past. And we become a part of that legacy. In the Native American tradition, they say that they never really make decisions about something in present day, that they actually sit in council, in sacred council, and they talk about, are the decisions that we are about to make going to be positive for 7 generations after us? There's a divine consideration about what their responsibility is with regards to how they groom their ancestral lineage. And we all are a part of one ancestral lineage, and so we have a responsibility with regards to how are we setting the stage for this globe, for this place, for this consciousness, and for this planet. And all of this month, the theme has been about the power of the inherent you. And that word inherent to me is a very precious word. Inherent means that it's already within us. It's a given. You've heard other words today describing the same thing, intuition. Intuition. that which is that guidance system within us. And so the big story, the big revelation that we have in human form is that spiritually we are already everything that we seek. That everything that we've been grasping for and moving towards, and we've spoken about this throughout this entire month, is already inside of us. That all of the wisdom that is attributed to Source, divine intelligence, God, is within us. And the one pathway or the one portal that is the requirement for us to open is that portal of individual and collective awareness to that. And it doesn't have to be difficult, but somehow we make it difficult. It doesn't have to be arduous, but sometimes we give credit to things that require many, many steps, rather than realizing that in the moment of the divine instant, in the moment of the divine healing, all of that which is inherent and all of that which is intuitive and all of that which is divine and illuminated can be seen and experienced if we accept it to be so. So the power of the inherent you. And we used a book by Christian Larson this month to focus on this called The Pathway of Roses. And I wanted to complete this series today by driving home the point that in the inherent us, in the nature of that, is a sublime state of existence. How many of you would like a sublime state of existence? Okay, 3. All right. A sublime state of existence simply means that there is a congruency between our human self, our human nature, our physical world, and that which is the cosmic world or the spiritual self or the soul. Many, many different names describing the same thing. A congruency, not one alleviating the other, but two coming together in order to create this blend, this overlay. And what Christian Larson tells us is that we first, and this might be new to you, and if you want to get some paper and a pen out, there's lots of information today. If you don't have a pen, look at your neighbor and go, "How you doing? Give me a pen." Because there are some things I feel that we need to discuss and we really need to do a deeper dive about. So the first thing that we are instructed in this sublime state of existence is that we must live in the cosmic world before we can live real life in this world. So let's look at that. So, in order to create this sublime state of existence, we must live in the cosmic world. In other words, we must live in the spiritual world. We must live in the world of the soul before we can live fully in real life in this world. Did you get that? We must live in the cosmic world. We must live in the spiritual world before we can fully live in the physical plane. How do we do that? How do we do that? He says we cannot realize the fullness of life until we live in the source of life, and the source of life is spiritual. So if you were here last week, I had an illustration about looking at something that we would label as spiritual. Baji was over here doing her wonderful Tai Chi, and I was over here observing Baji, and I was going, wow, if I could only do that. And if Esinichi was behind me and she was doing the hand movements as well, depicting the fact that what Baji was doing, I have, but I'm not focused on it. I'm looking externally and wishing that I had it. And the thing that I'm wishing for, I have. It's like talking and chewing gum and patting your stomach at the same time sometimes, right? It's like the things that you and I are craving, we have. We have in the soul part of us, in the spiritual cosmic world of us that is inherent. It's in us. But we travel, we seek, we pay lots of money to other people to help us uncover the fact that what we've been wanting all along, we have. We travel all around the world, which is great. I love traveling around the world, but the reality is that if I'm traveling to find and seek something, the thing that I'm trying to find and seek, I already am. And Christian Larson is saying that the only way that you and I will find deep, fulfilled satisfaction or a sublime state of existence is this one key thing. I must first live in this world. So where is this world? It's right here in my gut. No. Where is this world? This world is an interior world. So the interior world is a mental world. It's a consciousness world. In order for me to fully experience the sublime state of existence in the physical, I have to first live where? In the interior spiritual world. How do I do that? How do I do that? He says to live in this cosmic world, in this spiritual world, is to realization, the purity and the absoluteness of that spiritual world, the divinity of humankind's real nature, and the absolute perfection of its true being. So, when I look at something that doesn't appear to be in the absolute nature of pure being, what do I have to do with my observation? Not with the thing, but with my observation of the thing. I have to shift my perception. When I look at something that appears to be lack and limitation, I don't just run to the lack and limitation and try to piecemeal patchwork it back to what I feel is passable or better than. But what I must do first is what? In mind, be able to transfer the perception of the physical into the perception of the spiritual, which simply means that I see it as what? I see it as an expression of God. I see it as perfection. I see it as beauty. This sounds absurd if all that we do is live from the realm of the physical. This sounds absurd if all that you've ever been groomed and taught and domesticated to understand and believe is that what you see externally is real. This sounds ridiculous and actually just complete fallacy if I've grown up in an environment that tells me, yes, you must be a good citizen, you must be a humanitarian, you must go right the wrongs, and I march into the wrong with my bloated rightness, only to find that I'm ill-equipped to be able to do anything sustainable. But good for me, and good for all the rest of the martyrs of the world and throughout the ages that attempted to do that, because that is considered holy and sanctimonious. But it doesn't really change anything. And so the mark of wisdom, the mark of the sublime state of existence is, I do not turn my back on that, but I go into that having done the interior work that is required, that teaches and shows me and reminds me over and over again that I will never fully tap into all that can be resolved. I can never fully tap into meeting someone generationally where this life and this life affected one another in a way that experienced death. I can never really come and create that kind of reconciliation unless I have done my own interior work. And so you see, there are many of us who sit in this room who are beautiful, wonderful people. You're all beautiful, wonderful people. Victoria reminded us that there's no one ugly in here. But there is ugly consciousness. And a lot of the ugly consciousness is self-deprecation and self-loathing towards that which we are. A lot of that deprecation is in understanding that somehow I have wound up in this poison of comparison, that I have looked at all of these different things and I have allowed myself to marginalize my existence because I have forgotten that everything that I need is accessible in the spiritual plane. And so I've tried to piecemeal and patchwork it on the realm of the physical. And we still do that. We still do that. And so what will be the turning point? What will be the catalyst for you that will drive you to the knees of your interior world before you try to do anything in the realm of the external? What will be the thing? What will be the thing that will support and help us do that? He says that the other world, the soul of the universe, permeates the limitless vastness of the entire cosmos. So, where is that? Inside of you. The entire cosmos, the vastness, the limitless vastness is inside of us. In that sublime essence of all the reality, the real reality of all that is, there is an infinite spiritual sea in which we live and we move and we have our being. The divine counterpart of everything that was, is, or is to be. Oh my God, everything that was, is, and is to be is where? Inside of you. If you took class, if you were particularly in practitioner training, give it up for my practitioner interns. They take their test on Tuesday night. After 2 years of study, so the practitioners and the practitioners interns will tell you that what is that interior world is called the subjective mind or the subconscious mind. And in that is the warehouse of all that is, all thought. Not just your thought, but the thought of all sentient beings since recorded sentient thought. All that is within that warehouse. So that means that the thoughts of the Michelangelos and the Albert Einsteins and the Madame Curies and the people that you hold near and dear, all of that genius is housed within the interior of the subjective mind in the inner world. Why would I march into a battlefield of effect? Why would I go into a problem without first going back to that interior world and saying, show me the solution here. Teach me what is the wise step. Teach me what is the wise verbiage to be able to do. Show me the solution that does indeed already exist before I go into that world of effect. Wouldn't any of us prepare ourselves if we were going to work or going to take a test or going to do whatever it is that we do in our day-to-day human experience? Wouldn't have we prepared for that thing that we're going to do? Why would we cut ourselves short any less than going into the interior world to prepare for that? Do you see? Do you see the vast difference? That is self-awareness. I am aware of that which is a part of the totality of this self. But we don't do it. We don't do it consistently. We do it in crisis, but we don't do it day to day necessarily. We don't wake up and the first thing is we go into the interior world and we go, how do I choose for this day to unfold? How do I set the stage for that which is the sublime existence to come into my being? Please understand that as I say this, I'm telling you, I failed miserably this week at this because I got straight up and went right towards the effect. Because that is also a part of what we are designed. We have a forgetfulness about us, but we also have a remembrance about us. We have a human component and we have a divine component. The experience, the totality of the experience, depends upon which part do we give the most attention and time to. So you are stressing about something. You are stressing about something. You are fearful about something. You are concerned, worried, and anxious about something. And I'm telling you that that something has very thin roots. You ever been weeding things in a garden and you pull certain things up and they just come out? That's what a concern, an anxiousness, and a fear is. It is a very shallow-rooted thing. That if we went into the interior world and established and deeply rooted ourselves, then we would know that all of those things are easily removed and are truly of no concern. Now, part of living from that is you have to understand that you're going to be looked upon and labeled as very strange. Because people would say to you, why are you not concerned about this? Why are you not upset about this? Why are you not pulling your hair out and letting it fall out and alopecia just taking over and destroying everything, stress taking over? Why are you not being actively charged about this thing? And you owe no one an explanation. Ours is not a platform to talk about the depth and the breadth and the beauty of our relationship with the cosmos. Ours is to simply live from that space. To live from that understanding and that teaching. So he says, Christian Larson, he says, it is that world that we find on the supreme heights of all existence, and it is therefore the cosmic world. The cosmic world. It is orderly, it is harmonious, it is complete, it is perfect, it is transcendent, it is infinite, divine, and to live in this world is to view the entire universe from the heights and everything that is beautiful and all that is good. Available 100% of the time. All of that. All of that. If we're not there, you have done nothing wrong. Because that cosmic world does not relate, judge, label anything as right or wrong. It just is. Consider it an open invitation. Consider it available energy that is there 24/7. Consider it a cosmic world that has no hinges, bars, doors, barriers, no walls. It's just there. The inherent part of that is simply there. It does not judge or condemn if you don't access it. It's just there. And so when we understand that free will gift, then the more that we mature spiritually, the more we realize that everything truly is our responsibility. And we make no others wrong by the fact that they are not accessing that, because all of us are not accessing that fully. None of us here are fully submerged in that 100% of the time. So ours is not the role of judger to condemn such a person for being able to do that. Ours is simply understanding that I will never cease to make myself available to, or I will never fully access all that I am capable of accessing, because it is infinite in nature. But boy, what a ride it can be if I determine from now until I take my last breath in this incarnation to go for it. To go for it. And so the keys for that then, the first one is, how do I get there? That's the first mistake, because there's no getting there. There is no destination. How are we going to get there? We're not. What we're going to do is we're going to realize that we are there. How are we going to realize that we are there? We're going to look at it, but not through our eyes, but through our mind, our consciousness. So how are you going to get more self-aware? You're not. You're going to realize that you already are aware. How am I going to realize that? I'm going to look at my circumstances, but not through the physical eye. I'm going to look at it from the interior world of consciousness. How do I do that overlay? How do I do that overlay? Someone help me out here. How would I do that? I look at the news, and all I see is division. So I look at it. How am I going to overlay it? How am I going to put the interior world of the cosmos over that? I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to pretend it's not there. That's not what I'm talking about. But what am I going to do? How am I going to overlay it with truth, the spiritual truth of the cosmic world? Anybody want to shout out how I'm going to do it? Accept it the way that it is. Okay. And by accepting it doesn't mean that I surrender to that acceptance or fall prey to that as my reality. I can see and I can understand it from where it's coming from. Are you capable of doing that? Are you able to look at something and accept and understand where it's coming from? Yes. If someone attacks me, I can look at the attack and I can understand where it's coming from, because all attack is a product of pain. And everybody's been in pain. And some of us are in pain now. And when we are in pain, we want the pain to go away. And in wanting the pain to go away, some of the ways in which we do that from the physical world is try to put that onto you or put that onto others. But I can look at that, right? And I can understand it, but I don't have to take it on. How else can I look at division and overlay it through different eyes?
Seeing something like that, I'll think that the people are coming from a space of fear instead of love. So it's an act coming from fear instead of love.
Absolutely. So everything is coming from fear rather than love. I can understand that, right? Does that mean that I have to join them in the fear? No. Does that mean that I even have to change their mind? No. But I get to do what? I get to love. I get to return that. By returning love doesn't mean that I run up to them and I hug them and I go, oh my God, I love you. But I can simply look at that from a place of understanding and tap into the interior world that understands that what's coming at me is not personal. It's coming at me from a source of limitation that is based in the physical only. It's not even my job to go and try to fix them or convert them, but it is my job to allow the transmutation of that fear to meet my interior world, and my interior world through love doesn't retaliate back, seeks to understand, and holds a place in conversation, in consciousness, and in action that brings a different result, that doesn't perpetuate that. Just as those two beautiful people on the Facebook thread did not perpetuate the longevity of hate and blame, but said, I create reconciliation for what my relative did. I create reconciliation. I open it up for whatever it is that you are being pained about. I open up and I take responsibility because I too am a part of that pain. But I don't allow that pain to continue or to perpetuate from this moment forward. That's living from the interior world. We're not going to get there. We're not going to go there. It's not a destination. We are there. How does one then become well practiced in that kind of sublime state of existence when the rest of the world wants to tell you that you're crazy? When the rest of the world wants to say you're not doing enough. And so we take all of that and we realize that the key is silence. Silence. Teaching a meditation class, we will wrap up this Wednesday. And everybody in the class expressed on some level their challenge with meditation. Meditation is simply the creation of silence. The devotion to a time where you and I go and we sit still. There's nothing aspirational about it. In that meditation, my goal isn't to transcend into the Pleiades and go shopping and then come back and bring all of the gifts that are there. The key is to just begin to learn how to still the physical body and to still the mind. And at first, the mind is all over the map. But the more that I go to the appointment with stillness, the more that I become comfortable with that, the more that I become accustomed to that. And it is in that stillness then, as I perpetually do this practice, that I begin to hear all of the ancient wisdom that resides within my subjective mind. It is in that stillness that I begin to hear all of the instruction that has long been coming my way, but I've never really stopped to take the time to be still long enough to hear it. It is there that I am guided and directed on where I need to move or take action. It is there that I am guided in terms of what is mine to do. It is there that I become less afraid about such things as vulnerability and really being able to see someone. So not only did I combine in last week's class the uncomfortable nature of being still for a long extended period of time, but then, horror of horrors, I made them pair up and stare at one another. Did you know that a baby needs thousands upon thousands of hours of what's called eye gazing in order to fully develop? They need to be able to see recognition through a parent or a guardian or a caretaker. They need to be able to see the eye gazing of another individual in order to develop inside of them. What happens is that far too often that practice of eye gazing might be a little bit in their infancy, but we stop doing it in adolescence and we farm all of that responsibility over to a video. And we stop looking at the child through the lens of the eye. What happens to us then in adulthood when we are not well versed and haven't developed the art of eye gazing, of being able to look at another person fully in the eye? What happens is that we look away. We detach. We don't see. We're not hearing 100%. We're operating from the plane of the physical, but we're not operating from the interior world of the cosmic spiritual level with one another. And I will tell you, I actually have had problems with that growing up. I did not get a sufficient amount of eye gazing growing up. And there was a period in my life when people would say, "Why are you looking at my shoulder?" Because when I would look at somebody, I would revert to the shoulder because I hadn't developed fundamentally enough to be able to stay with someone in their eye. And it would take people to say, "Why are you looking at my shoulder?" for me to come back and look at them in the face. Now, that's been something that I've continuously worked on well into adulthood. But how many of us are so uncomfortable? I give them the assignment on Wednesday night. All right, you're going to sit in front of somebody. We're not going to say anything. You're just going to look at their eyes. And they're like, "Ah!" Someone went home and said, "My husband is so glad he didn't take this class after I told him what we did," right? The key is silence. The key is eye gazing. The key is practicing being able to see beyond the perception of the physical. Because here's the thing. If you practice eye gazing with someone else who's willing to practice it back, you see much more than what you see on the realm of the physical. You want to be able to unlock the cosmos? Go and begin to look at people sincerely, fully, deeply. Everybody in class said, "Wow, actually it was a lot easier to do this with a stranger. I can't do this at home." Go home. Ty, we've got a workout this afternoon. Go home and stare at your beloved. Go home and stare. Not stare, gaze. Like this. But I want you to notice how uncomfortable that is, and let that uncomfortableness be a key to resistance to the cosmic world. Let that uncomfortableness be a key, a signal to the fact that we are not really fully accepting of being open and available. Some of the great healers and great visionaries of our time knew and understood this. And sometimes when they were being attacked, the best mode of communication was to simply stare and see the person that was doing the attacking. And to allow them to understand, even energetically, that they were being seen. And so, when this happens, Christian Larson says that the infinite suddenly begins to be revealed. The infinite, the inherent nature, all that is, starts to be revealed. He reminds us that God is not a personality, but is personal to every personality in existence. God, intelligent source, is not a personality. It is life itself, and that life itself is in existence in every single personality. But you and I must be willing to uncover that within ourselves before we can see it in another. And it was interesting because the greatest teachers in the world, including the master teacher, Jesus, in biblical scripture, remember in the book of Matthew, he said, when he's in the boat with all of the disciples and the disciples are freaking out because the storm is there, right? And so here's the boat. Boat's going like this. So Jesus stands up in the boat. He's going like this. But he's not freaking out. The rest of them are freaking out. And it says in the book of Matthew, he arose and he rebuked the winds and the sea. And there was a great calm. And then everybody marveled. Ooh. And they said, what manner of person is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? What manner of person is this that can stand within this rocky boat and rebuke what it is that's happening? And that which he is rebuking obeys him. And so I started to look at this more deeply in terms of the sublime state of existence. And the word rebuke was not a word that I felt must have been the original word. So I went on the deeper dive and I found that actually the word rebuke is a Greek word. Its origin, epetmasism, something, which simply means, you ready for this? To superimpose. So see, when you rebuke something, the thing that you're rebuking is probably not going to respond back in kind, right? It's like, don't rebuke me. But if you superimpose it, that's why I thought this isn't really the proper word. What's the origin of rebuke? This epitmasin, which is Greek, which means to superimpose. And so, Christ in the ship, what is the Christ? Not a personality. It's consciousness. Christ is a consciousness. It is a, you ready? It is an incarnating principle. So that means that the Christ consciousness, the incarnating principle, is where? Inside of us. When the Christ consciousness, the incarnating principle, looks upon the conflict, doesn't rebuke it, but it does what? It superimposes over it what? The love, the truth of the interior world. What happens to that? It changes. So that which is the storm then does what? Obeys what it is that's being superimposed over it. Why? Because love really is the ultimate only reality. There is no stronger power than love. There is nothing stronger than that. And so, Where are you? What is the incarnating principle in your ship? What's affecting your ship, your reality? What's the wind and the sea and the gale and the storm and the upset? What is that? And where are you standing in that ship, which is your beingness, and accessing your incarnating principle and looking at that thing and doing what? Overlaying it with what the truth is. You want to know how to have the sublime state of existence? There it is. Silence helps us do that. Silence helps us do that. Being able to see, not through the lens of the physical, but to see things through the lens of the incarnating principle. So here's the assignment. If you really want to access the inherent gifts that are already there within you, you and I have to do the work. We have to do the work. If we are going to be a part of spiritual and social reform, please do the work before you go out and try to do something in the realm of the external. Because what ends up happening is if we don't do the work, if we don't access the interior world and we go out and we try to be in that, all that we do is we contribute to that. And what the world needs are more people who pause and go into the interior world, into the incarnating principle, into the Christ consciousness that is within them, and go, I knew you were there. Hi, it's me. Show me. Be in the silence. And then begin to see. And begin to look. And begin to observe. And I can stand in the ship even while the ship is rocking. Even while the ship is going back and forth. I can look and I can stand there. And I can begin to do what? Superimpose. Superimpose the calmness and the love and the energy of the interior world over that. What would happen to the planet if more people did that? What would happen in this community if we all agreed to do that? What would happen to those who need to be fed and who need to be housed and to need to be cared for and need to be brought out of the quicksand of unconscious thinking? What would happen if more people accessed that inherent interior world? That is the sublime state of existence. So here's the offering today. The offering is, it's there if you want it. And before we perpetuate the argument about how unfair something is, before we perpetuate the argument about not having enough, before we perpetuate the argument about I never can catch a break, before we perpetuate the argument about it's too late for me, I beg you to stop. Beg you to stop and to go into the silence and to say, I'm willing to listen. And to remember these words, that everything that is your solution, it's not out there, it's in here. And that you are fully equipped. What is the saying? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. And here's the thing, you are the student, but guess what? You're the teacher as well. We're all students and we're all teachers. We have all of that particular quality there for us. May we access it wisely and use it. And the power of the inherent you is already here inside. And so it is. Hi, I'm David Ault, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.